And on the other hand, women have to desist from competing with men. It doesn't add value at all. The reason being, there has to be an element of submission. Submission not in the context of men ordering women around. In fact, I would say right in front of the camera, that is so much unlike what God would have wished for. No half is superior to the other. Each half is very necessary. The man trusts the woman, and the woman submits to the decisions that have been made by the man, and trusts that they are in line with the betterment of the society, and implements them in all humility and with all determination, without competing. You see, I've always said, if the two were to work hand in hand, it will bring an overall beneficial effect to the human race. It's a question of each understanding. As I said, if you don't understand the basic tenets or the principles underlying anything, you're bound to mess it up. Now, when we do not understand why I've been born a woman and why I've been born a man and what's my role, then definitely we're going to ruin or rather see the mess that we are seeing today in the human race that is not even rocking other species because they know how to work hand in hand.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching us from. This is another day, another bright day that we thank God for. And welcome back to Soipan channel. My good name is Martha Soipan. I welcome you all. Feel at home. All those that are tuning in for the first time, karibu sana, and you that have always been tuning in, thank you so much. I don't take this for granted. I want to say thank you, asante, asante sana. Once again, I want to say thank you for this amazing space that we've been honored and by Sanet, that is situated along North and Eastern Bypass, just opposite St. Gabriel's Catholic Church. Kindly pay them a visit. See, they're having amazing stuff here that they offer. Meetings you can hold here, you can have your mbuzi, your chamas, and if you feel like you don't need to go home, you've had it enough, there's also somewhere you can rest. Once again, thank you for Gabriel Collection. I still emphasize with a small G on our Facebook page. You can locate us there, order your clothes and feel dressed by Gabriel Collection and look good like your girl Soipan. Now, I remember some times ago we talked about who is a woman, and most of you have been requesting to know who is a man so that we can have a balanced gender. So today I thought, why not let's bring someone on board to tell us who is a man and what is the responsibility of a man in a family, because when we talk about a woman, I remember very well our guest Michelle Kamanzi talked it and really talked it at large, and most of you understood. But at the same time, you commented and said we would also want to know who is a man, what are the responsibilities of a man in a family. And today my guest is ready to answer all those questions. I hope you're there, you're taking notes, you're having your cup of coffee, your popcorns, and enjoy. Allow me to welcome him. Hi, Mr. Paul.
Hi,
how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Kindly say hi to my people.
Right, hi everybody there. My name is Paul, as I've been introduced, and I'm a Bible teacher, I'm a motivational speaker, and I'm an instructor in PR and communications management. So you're welcome on board.
Thank you so much.
Right.
How have you been?
I've been doing fine.
Welcome to Soipan Fraternity.
Thank you
Feel
so
at
much.
home.
Thank you.
My people are so lovely.
Wow.
Yeah, so you should be ready to answer so many questions today.
We are here.
Now, I reached out to you because I really wanted to know who is a man. The society today, we are talking so much about a woman, what a woman does in a family and all that. Whatever, sometimes things are happening in a family and a lot of things are being blamed on a woman.
Right.
So sometimes back we talked about who is a woman, and each and every person woman who is out there
Right.
understood her role in a family and what she or she's not supposed to do.
That's right.
But we've never gotten someone to talk about who is a man, and I thank God that today I will not bring a woman to talk about a man.
That's right.
I've brought you because you are a man.
Oh, right. What a privilege. I'm honored to be the one to address the topic of who is a man. And right away, I would want to start by saying that the word man for long has been misconstrued to mean the males in the society, whereas the word male to begin with, man to begin with, is a species. Just as you would have different species, you have the fish kind, the bird kind, and the man kind. Allow me to draw from the Bible and say when God had created all the other kinds, rather, he said, let's create the mankind. So man is a species. Man does not necessarily mean the males, but you find within the species man, there are two genders to it. There is the male and the female. Even as the Bible says, male and female, he created them. But now that has a connotation or an inclination that relates to their biological makeup. But now I would want to speak about the male man today, not so much in the biological sense, but from the functionality aspect of it, because I think that is where the society has a big problem. Nobody has an issue whether they are male or female, and I think the main confusion comes in when we're trying to look at the functionality of a man. And without much ado, I would want to highlight that man has like basically three functions that he's expected to fulfill. Number one, man is supposed, the male man in this sense, supposed to be a vice regent to God. What I mean by saying he's a vice regent is that he's supposed to represent the interests of God on planet Earth. And number two, a male man is expected to become a husband. Husband means he has to cultivate a family, he has to cultivate and propagate the gender or the species man, and make sure it gets propagated upon the face of the earth. And the third role or that expectation regarding the male man is fatherhood. He's expected to be a father. So I'm going to get down to each and every one of these three roles as we go on and kind of explain what that means. Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
So you said men is a species.
That's right.
Of a female and a male.
That's right.
Oh, nice. So let's continue.
So when if you look at the female side or the female divide of the man species, we generally call them women, and the meaning to that is that they are men, but they are wombed men. They got a womb and they are capable of bearing children. But now the male divide of the man species, we've gotten used to calling it the man until it kind of becomes synonymous with the male man. So for our purposes today, allow me to use the word man to mean the male man.
Okay.
And I want to first of all begin by saying that if the function or if the purpose of something is not known, definitely abuse becomes inevitable. And I guess the vast majority of male men walking the earth today don't take time to understand who they are. That is from a perspective of functionality, and that is the genesis of much of the confusion and the tragedy that we're seeing in the society today. Because you will agree with me that man never just happened. Man never just came into existence for no good reason. And that's why I began by saying that the primary role of the male man is to be a vice regent. And if I may kind of disambiguate or explain that, is that God himself is a spirit. Of course, I'm speaking to the people that I believe do embrace the context that the earth was created by God, and he never made it for no good reason. But then you understand, if you are like me, that God is a spirit. A spirit simply means he's an existent a real entity that exists but has no physical form to it. But now here there is a contradiction, because you find when the earth was created physical. So it needed someone to manage it, who would interact with it from a physical perspective. And that is where God proceeded to create, firstly, the male man. What that tells you is that God expected the male man to take charge and control and arrange and maintain the creation in line with his interests, not in line with the interests of man. Man had to draw his wisdom of management, his wisdom of conducting every affair on earth from his creator. And that encompasses or enshrines the utmost purpose of the male man. So what am I trying to say? It becomes a big crisis, number one, when the male man loses touch with his maker. If man does not connect with God, then his purpose on earth kind of becomes fuzzy. It's no longer clear. Because what happens, the male man from that point starts pursuing other interests that are really not in line with his purpose for creation. So man is supposed to represent the interests of God. And I would briefly try to get a bit deeper into that. And we try to find out like what would be the interests of God. I must say I always get excited whenever I read the account of creation, because you find God never needed someone to help him. In fact, if you read from the book of Job, you'll find the back and forth that went on between God and Job. And God is challenging Job and asking him, where were you when I did this? Where were you when I did that? And I've often wondered from a human perspective, like, why didn't God first of all create man? Perhaps he would have assisted him in doing part of the work. But there is a reason to that, because God is the ultimate owner of everything. He never wanted to share his glory with anybody. And God had a plan. He had a blueprint of what he wanted to make. So he never wanted the input of another party into that, because that would have ultimately nullified the fact that he's the ultimate owner of everything. So when he created man, he handed him something that was already complete. And he was like, this is how I would want you to do it. You found it like this, maintain it like that. And you find one of the things that God did, he told man, replenish the earth. Replenishing means to complete or to fill up. So God had endowed man with the capacity to push whatever he had initiated to limits. But now that was to be done strictly in line with the expectations of God. Now what the challenge or the demand that placed on the male man was to keep in constant communication with his maker, so that he would really know, what does God expect me to do right now? And up to what point am I supposed to do this? Now that is what religiously is called righteousness. Righteousness has nothing to do with avoidance of sin and purity. But today I want to give a fresh definition of the word righteousness. It simply comes from the English word right alignment to law. And law not in the sense of imprisonment and police and courts and all that, but law in the sense of principles, underlying principles that run every process and that underlie every part of creation. So God expects man to be righteous, that is to play in line with the underlying principles of everything. And allow me to say this, it's impossible to align with something that you don't understand.
Very true.
Now, if you don't understand how something's supposed to operate, doesn't matter how simple that thing is, you'll always break it up or mess it. And that is a predicament of our day. Man, the male man, because they are the discourse of the day, the majority of us don't take time to understand the underlying principles of our own existence, of family, of marriage, of parenthood and fatherhood. And subsequently, everything seems to kind of crash and not work the way it's supposed to work. Because we're supposed to draw from God, like, what was family all about? What was marriage all about? What about fatherhood? What did it entail, and how exactly was it supposed to be run? So that's what I would, the far I would go with the aspect of vice regency of man. So, and I want to say this to the fathers listening to me. We should always have the consciousness that we are not here to represent our own interests. We are not here to pursue our desires. You know, one thing I keep telling my readers, because I'm an author, as you say, is that life is a timed venture. You know, it's a bit stupid to imagine that we'll be around forever and we'll always have all the time to do whatever we want to do. It behooves us to agree to the fact that just as you were born one day, a day will come and you'll depart from here. So it's a span. It's a very precise span that has been predetermined. 50 years, 30 years, 60 years, and so on and so forth. And within that time, we're not to live as though we are on an adventure, trying our hands on each and everything that comes our way, but we ought to be very clear about the principles that underlie the three mandates I mentioned: our vice regency, our being husbands, and our being fathers. We need to be very clear about the underlying principles of those three things, if at all we are to fulfill our purpose during our days on earth.
Wow.
Right.
Next, there were three.
There were three.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to go on and talk about the expectation of a male man as a father, or rather as a husband, I'm sorry. Now, I want to begin by explaining the word husband, because I'm not quite too sure all of us know what that's exactly meant to mean, because we take it to mean you're attached to a woman and you're the mister and she's the Mrs. But I don't really think that's the meaning.
What's the meaning?
The word husband comes from another Old English word that is tantamount or equal to the word farmer. It's supposed to mean one who tends a crop or a garden or an orchard with an expectation of getting some fruit from it.
Some reward.
Some reward, that's right. I want to draw an analogy with a farmer who is tending an apple orchard or a mango orchard or whatever that is. Number one, he is the guy who is expected to make the choice between which seedlings to retain and which seedlings to kind of chuck off his farm, because he's supposed to be superior in wisdom. You find when Jesus was speaking, he said, you are branches in the vine. Okay, of course, purporting that he himself is the true vine. And then he says that my Father is the husbandman. And a few verses down there, he says, you did not choose me, but I chose you. Because that's what a wise husband does. He's supposed to make the choice, to choose, not to be chosen. No, and when I talk about choosing, this is in regard to a whole spectrum of things. In short, I'm trying to say this for the purposes of keeping it simple. A male man is supposed to be a wise decision maker. Because if he's not good in choosing, the way a husband or a farmer is supposed to choose what to do with his orchard, what activity to indulge in at what specific time, then there's no way he's going to get a fruit or a yield out of his farm. So decision making, and not just decision making for the sake of it, but choice decision making is prime, it's very elemental in every man. That is something I suppose we should even teach the boy child from some very early age. That the society is looking up to you to make decisions and choices that will amount to positive benefits. Allow me to say this, even though I'm not addressing the element of the female man today. I've always wanted to draw a line or to explain some mess or some confusion that has rocked the society today. You find a lot of women are trying to draw their meaning out of competing with men. It's kind of like they're trying to prove their worth and their value and how much they can achieve in life by competing or downplaying men. And I've always said this is chaos. This is the perfect illustration of chaos. For your information, let me share this with you. Man is the only species, both in the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom, where you find intergender wars. Animals don't try to fight for superiority between the she's and the he's. Plants don't have a problem who is higher than who.
Yeah.
They're comfortable with that. They're okay. But look at man. Every day we are finding it a big problem, because you got men trying to disapprove of what women are doing, women trying to compete with what men are doing, and every day each of the halves is trying to prove it's more superior than the other. And I think this is a bit of confusion, because any species, take any species, be it birds or animals, is only complete when there is complementation and not competition. The two halves, allow me to say this, no species is complete in the midst of competition.
No species is complete in the midst
of competition. Okay. If the two halves of any species begin to compete with one another, eventually what they do, they run each other down and the species goes extinct. Now, men and women are supposed to complement each other, not compete with each other. And I'm going to give an analogy to that end. I like comparing the situation between men and women to that of like an executive director and a general manager, or an administrator, if you may. Now, the general manager or the director, the executive director is supposed to come up with policies and decisions that are supposed to drive an organization forward. But you and I know that it's not incumbent upon him to implement those things. Now, when he's come up with the policies and the decisions, he'll hand them over to the general manager, who oversees the implementations of those decisions with very little, if any, interference from the executive director. Now, that puts a heavy demand on each, because on the side of the executive director, he's supposed to completely trust that his general manager has the ability to implement the policies. Now, on the part of the general manager, he's supposed to be submissive to agree to it that the executive director is capable of making choice policies that will drive the organization forward. Now, how does this marry or kind of agree with a situation between the two halves of the gender? The man is supposed to come up with policies, and that's why I say it's incumbent upon every male man to be very witty and sharp when it comes to making choice decisions, so that they don't mislead the entire organization called a home. Today, it's Martha, it's very unfortunate that you got scores of men who are not only incapable of deciding on behalf of their families, but even on behalf of their own selves. And it goes down to very, very small issues. When a man decides to spend the entire weekend on a drinking spree, I think that's a poor choice when it comes to time. I'm trying to explain where the analogy of a chief executive director and a general manager comes in when it comes to a home situation. And I'm saying the man is supposed to be capable of making choice decisions to avoid misleading their family. And that's in regard to aspects like time management, money management, and generally management of every other resource in the home. Because you find when God creates things, or when God created things, normally God will not provide the end result. And that's why he told man to replenish. God will initiate a process, he will create a capacity, but he expects man to fill up and complete the process.
Very true.
So what normally happens, God will give man the ability to make choice decisions. And then he expects that to be entrusted to the woman or the mother, or in this context, who's supposed to implement that until it yields something that is aligned with the expectations that God has initially. Now, that puts a responsibility upon man, choice decision making, and as I was saying, he must believe in the ability of the woman to implement whatever is handed down to her. That implies trust and love, and that's why the Bible tells men to love their wives, because part of loving is trusting, part of loving is being gentle, is being long-suffering, is being patient. You can't expect the woman to make it all happen within a day. She's got to familiarize herself, just the same way if an executive director hands over a policy to the general manager. He would be dumb to expect that to be implemented in a day. The manager has first to internalize it and then actualize it. So that calls for patience between the two halves of the gender. And on the other hand, women have to desist from competing with men. It doesn't add value at all. The reason being, there has to be an element of submission. Submission not in the context of men ordering women around. In fact, I would say right in front of the camera, that is so much unlike what God would have wished for. No half is superior to the other. Each half is very necessary. The man trusts the woman, and the woman submits to the decisions that have been made by the man, and trusts that they are in line with the betterment of the society, and implements them in all humility and with all determination, without competing. You see, I've always said, if the two were to work hand in hand, it will bring an overall beneficial effect to the human race. It's a question of each understanding. As I said, if you don't understand the basic tenets or the principles underlying anything, you're bound to mess it up. Now, when we do not understand why I've been born a woman and why I've been born a man and what's my role, then definitely we're going to ruin or rather see the mess that we are seeing today in the human race that is not even rocking other species, because they know how to work hand in hand. So allow me to maybe leave it at that and say, when it comes to the role of being a husband, the father has to actually embrace the fact that they are supposed to give out more. And when I say giving, that's another area that remains very gray in our modern day society. Because when you talk about giving, people will automatically start thinking about money. But allow me to say this: money is the least when it comes to giving, to what's supposed to be given. Because you find, even before money comes into the picture, there is a lot of guidance that is expected. There's a lot of knowledge and wisdom and understanding that needs to be handed over in each generation. Yes. And this comes, or rather by God's, by default, is supposed to come from the male man. You know, the male man is supposed to build the house. And get me right, there's a difference between a house and a home. Sometimes we imagine a home, well, thanks to social sciences, we've come to understand that a home is a combination of a mother and a father and some children in there. But I think it goes beyond that. It's not just a couple, a group of people who are living under the same roof. That does not necessarily qualify that to be a home. But a home is the productivity, it's the culture. It's the organization and the intermingling that comes from all these people who are dwelling under one roof and are related by blood or otherwise, that is beneficial to the human race now and in the future. There are lots of people today who live together as man and wife and children, but they're so discordant. The culture they embrace is just so weird and so absurd that you'd not even wish for it to last their own generation, let alone the next one. And with your permission, I would want to draw an example from the Bible. One day, God tells Nathaniel, go tell David, I want to build him a house. And David says, God, I want to build you a house. And well, it's a bit interesting because you wonder who is building who a house. Yes. God wants to build David a house. David wants to build God a house. Yes. So who's building who a house? But I got some explaining here to do. When David told God, I'm building you a house, he only meant a structure, a four-wall structure or otherwise, that he would raise up and kind of dedicate it to God. But when God said to David, I'm going to build you a house, he meant something entirely different. He meant, I'm going to build you a lasting name. I'm going to let you have some character. Because according to the Hebrew culture, a name is synonymous with character. And God is saying, I'm going to give you a name that will outlast you. A name that will be eternal, a name that will last forever. No, that makes my heart a bit sad, because you find a lot of male men today are so devoted building houses, buying land and owning property, but they do very little to build a home. Once that man is dead, everything goes with him. There's not even a single trace of his culture that can be, of his character that can be seen in his progeny. It just goes to the grave with him, and every generation that comes with a new culture that is so different from the founder of the home. And that's why I said, when it comes to giving, men ought to internalize the fact that they are the source. In fact, the word father itself means the source. The man is supposed to be the source, and thanks to the modern day society, we think of the source of money, which is just a small fraction of it. But it's supposed to be the source of, primarily the source of life. He's supposed to be the source of provisions in the family. He's supposed to be the source of protection. He's supposed to be the one who is the source of guidance, and ultimately he's supposed to be the one who prepares the current generation for the future.
Wow.
So having said that, with your permission, can I go on and talk about the expectations of a male man as a father?
Yes.
Well, what I've just given is basically the 5 roles that every male man who has graduated to be a father or is expecting to become a father should be very familiar with. Now, I've always told my readers that you are not ready until you're prepared. What exactly do I mean by that? If we were to go on a journey with you, Martha, and I'm calling you and I'm asking you, are you ready? You'll tell me, depending on whether you've prepared everything that you need for the journey, the answer might be, no, I'm not ready yet. And if you tell me you're not ready, all you're telling me is that you're not prepared. You haven't prepared enough. Your clothes are not packed, your lunch is not yet done. And by the time you're done preparing, then you will give me a call and tell me, now I'm ready. Because readiness is dependent on preparedness. Now, the problem you find in the society today emanates from the fact that a lot of male men hop into marriage before they are prepared for it. So I'm trying to say they are not ready when they get to involve themselves in raising families. And that is a recipe for chaos, and goes without saying, it's evident all around. Now, when do I, as a male man, get to know that now I'm ready to move on to the other step, to raise another generation? I'll say this: there are 5 crucial roles that are attached to fatherhood. Write them down if you're writing. Number 1, a father is someone who is expected to procreate. You find the ability to beget children is in the male man. Actually, according to the Bible stories, for those who subscribe to the Christian faith, the woman herself came from man. That does not necessarily mean that God plucked a rib from the man's rib cage and built a woman around her. The analogy that God removed a rib from the man is simply supposed to indicate the closeness. You see, you can always tell that the ribs are very close to the heart, and we all subscribe to the teachings that the heart is kind of like symbolizes life. And the ribs are the next closest thing to the heart. So that's supposed to indicate how close man and woman were intertwined from creation. But still, the woman was still in the man. So God chucked off the woman from the man, and the woman was supposed to help the man bring forth the rest of the human species that was in the man. Now, that is why I said it's a primary role for the man to procreate. And I want to say something at that point. I've heard this saying, and maybe you have many times, where men purport to be the head. And I've had it more times than I care to count, especially in marriage ceremonies, and they're told, now you, Mr. So-and-so, will be the head of the family. And what really doesn't, I don't quite agree with, is the insinuation that now being the head is the same thing as being the boss in the family. Because that's not the actual meaning. These words originally came from Apostle Paul himself. And when he said the man is the head, he had in mind the picture of a woman at the point of delivering a child. Can I say that again? The picture that was running through the mind of Apostle Paul when he talked of a man being the head of the family is that of a woman who is on a delivery bed. And all of us know that, or maybe the vast majority of us know, that the normal process is for the head to come out first. If anything on the contrary happens, then that is delivery is in danger of going the wrong way. So what Apostle Paul is saying is that the man always precedes everything. It's not about being the head in a vertical sense, but being the head in the precedent sense. No, the male man was the first one to be created. He preceded the women, he preceded the children. Then look at a typical marriage situation. Hardly will you find a lady like your mother walking to a man and telling them, I want to get married to you. It doesn't work like that. And if you tried that, it looks funny. You know, it looks strange. It's out of the norm. Because the man is supposed to precede. He's supposed to be the guy who goes out and asks for your hand in marriage. Proposes, right? And then there's also the element of like, the man will initiate the process of even childbearing most of the time. And if that is what the capacity that God has given man, then it should go without saying that should happen around every other eventuality or each and every other process that's supposed to happen within the human race. Men are supposed to be initiators. They're supposed to take precedence. In the society today, you find women kind of feeling a bit jittery and uncomfortable if the woman is the one who's to know what's to be taken for dinner.
But don't you think, Mr. Paul, that some men have become lazy and that is why women have taken the mantle?
No, that's the chaos that I'm addressing right now. Because you find if a man loses the sense or the reality of the fact that he's supposed to precede in everything, then thank God for responsible women who feel like they're not going to sit there and let the boat sink anyway. You know, for the sake of the kids, for the sake of their name, for the sake of this man who has refused to take control, women will hop in and try to salvage the situation. But I'm trying to say that the right principle should not work like that. It's supposed to be, there's something I like saying. You see, when women are raising up children, I'm not trying to be an advocate for women, I'm just trying to speak simple common sense. Most mothers don't have a problem raising their kids from day 0 to a certain age, and I love talking about 12 because most kids, by the time they are 0 to 12, they're so dependent for a lot of things. And you find mothers don't have a problem. They'll wash the kid, they'll feed the kid, they'll dress the kid, they'll nurse the kid, take them to hospital, and thanks to mothers, they do that. Apart, I would say as many as 99% of mothers are excellent in doing that. It's so natural in their system. But now, what do fathers do? Not all the fathers, I don't mean to demonize all the fathers, but a good percentage of men fail the human society when the baton is handed over to them.
And when is the baton handed over to them? At the age of?
I would say around 12 years. And where I get this from, I always believed, if you remember from our Bible stories, you'll have to bear with me, the Bible is the book of the law for me. It's utmost, so I based most of my arguments from there. And you remember when Jesus was taken to the temple, he was at age 12. And Joseph and Mary, being the parents of Jesus, did not decide to take him at age 12. That was the agreed age when the kids would be taken to the temple. Because the human society generally agrees that by the time a child is 12 years, they are ready to be molded into independent individuals. What I mean by that is that their biological aspect is now ready, their organs are grown, they are good to go, their brain is fully developed, and now whatever kind of psychological or spiritual input is imparted on them has a foothold. It can really amount to something. So I would say tentatively, in answer to your question, age 12. Mothers are good. They'll nurse kids up to age 12. They'll not ask for your input in changing the diapers. Hardly will they tell you to carry the baby around as you go about your duties. But now, the expectation from God is that the male man, and in this context, a father, is supposed now to take over the baton. The mother has molded the kid biologically and physically, and now the father is supposed to take over from there and mold the kid psychologically and spiritually. Allow me to say this, Martha. I still disagree with one slogan that again I've heard from the pulpit, and more so during weddings, and where the priest stands in front of the couple to be and tells the mother, now you'd want to show the kids how to go to church and to be godly. And I say no, I don't think that's the responsibility of a woman at all. The father is supposed to nurture the spiritual aspect of the family up to and including the mother.
Wow.
He has some inbuilt capacity. Remember, we said the man is the vice regent on behalf of God. The man is the guy who got the journal from God. He has it's in his system to know what should be done and what should not be done. And he should inherit that to both his wife and the children. So the mess we see in the society today is as a result of fathers who will fold their hands and they will refuse to, after they've procreated, because I don't think men have a problem with that, they'll procreate day and night, and the population, human population, is ever skyrocketing. But now they fail when it comes to the process of providing. And this is a delicate one, because again, our other half of the gender, women, in our day, and not everybody, of course, but the other gender has misinterpreted that context. They look at a man and say, you're supposed to be the provider. And whenever they're saying that, all they mean to say is that you're the guy who's supposed to be bringing money here. But remember, when God gave these mandates to man, there were no financial needs to be met. There were no bills to be paid. There was no buying of food. There were no school fees to be paid. Okay, am I trying to exonerate men from those responsibilities? No. But what I'm saying is that the kind of provision God expects from man goes beyond money. We've seen a lot of families, Martha, where men have left behind a lot of wealth, a lot of money. So money was really not an issue in those families. But those families, you can agree with me, more often than not end up messed up. They are shame of a family. And now you wonder, if all that was expected of the man was to provide financially, then what happened? That is the most clear illustration that the provision expected of a father goes beyond money. And I'll say this for the sake of time. The father is supposed to provide, besides the material provision, he's supposed to provide wisdom. That's a role that is supposed to be handled by the father exclusively. He's supposed to provide wisdom. You know, one thing that I must mention here that kind of doesn't argue very well with my spirit is when we as men will sit back, we don't do anything proactively to guide our children, to guide our wives in wisdom. We never have those sessions whereby you really communicate the expectations and the right way of doing anything until the day when everything goes haywire. That's when you start making hell rain on everybody in the family. You're shouting at the wife, you're shouting at the kids, you're there blaming the mother for all the rot in the family. Whereas the guy who's the little culprit is you. You never took time to impart wisdom to these people. It is okay to demand corporate dinner times when you all sit together and you share the wisdom and you share the nuggets as the father. Tell them how things are supposed to work. Impart the wisdom to your children. The next thing a father is supposed to share with the children is knowledge. What is knowledge? Knowledge, as the word insinuates, it's all about knowing. As a father, you've been around for long. You've been probably being around for more than the mother and the children.
Yeah, so you know a lot.
You know a lot.
Yeah.
You've had the exposure.
Yeah.
Yeah, even if you never experienced it firsthand yourself, you saw it in someone else's life.
You're still out there and you're still getting to know more and more.
I agree. And you're supposed to share this knowledge with your family.
Yeah.
Don't wait until when your child goes and gets into the hand of the policeman. That's when he comes to know there is such a thing as the law. No, you're supposed to share experiences, share how you grew up, share what somebody did and it went south, share what another person did and it benefited them. That knowledge is you're supposed to be the source of that knowledge to your family. Sometimes human beings are created in a very fascinating way. Sometimes we will avoid indulgences in life simply because we had a story and we are drawing from it, and we can draw conclusions that if I do this, then this is bound to happen.
Yeah.
So those stories become a source of motivation and inspiration in life, and they determine how good or bad your family or your progeny is going to be. What if you don't share those stories because you never have time for your family? All this time you have, you're out there hanging with friends and indulging in funny things, then you can expect the family is going to go the wrong way. Another thing a father is supposed to share is counsel. You know, advise kids. When people are growing up, they're bound to make mistakes. This is exciting for me. I've always wondered why God never came up with a program of modern day schooling as we know it today. Amidst all those things that God created, I would have expected him to build a school. But he never did that. How on earth did he expect man to learn? Because God's school of learning is called mistakes. Get me well, there is a difference between deliberate wrongdoing and mistakes. A mistake is when you do something wrong, but unintentionally. You never planned for it. But wrongdoing is when you deliberately craft something that you know is wrong and you indulge in it. God has never had a problem with mistakes because they are his instituted way of learning. When you make a mistake, God expects you to learn from it and do it right the next time. But when you indulge in a wrongdoing, God's going to punish you for that because that's evil, that's wicked. Now, we have a society that does not excuse mistakes. So, and as a father, I'm supposed to sit there, watch my kids, watch my wife, and if they happen to make mistakes, I'm supposed to take advantage, to leverage the situation to guide them on what is right and how things ought to be. It's not an occasion to chide the child, to demonize them, to belittle them and make them feel inferior, but it's an opportunity to make them learn how things are supposed to work. So far, I would go that far with provisions. Of course, and let me say this because this is important. Fathers, you really got to take the responsibility. It's not right when the wife has to struggle to feed the family. And all her money goes into clothing the children, whereas all your money goes into having fun with friends. And
now, Mr. Paul, I have a question. I think for me, you've really elaborated very well the purpose of also a man in a family. And a lot of people have been saying maybe women are the bad people that have even led to a lot of currently as we speak, the generation that we have today, I think we have less marriages than divorces and separation.
I would agree.
Who do you think, maybe 70% of who have they are the ones that have caused all these divorces, separations, single mothers, because we have so many single mothers, and also our children going astray?
I would say it would be very unfair to blame either half for the chaos that the world has become, the society has become today. Because I would imagine, or according to my own findings, the rot we see in the society today, the dysfunctional marriages, youth that are just doing anything, is a result of lack of proper knowledge on both divides. What I mean by that is that men don't know what is expected of them, and I use that word very deliberately, don't know. Of course, there is a small percentage that arrogantly and deliberately defies what they know they should be doing. Because, like, goes without saying, every man is supposed to know they're supposed to take their children to school. So when a man folds his hand and says, I'm not going to pay you, find a way of getting your child to school, well, that's arrogant, that's wrong. But the vast majority of men who are fathers today, as I said earlier in the discussion, are not prepared when they hop into marriage. Preparedness in this context means they have zero knowledge what is expected of them. So, and this is very unfortunate, Martha. A lot of people today, I like what you just mentioned. A lot of people today get into marriage purely based on the aspect of age. You know, you are 24, you are 30, you are 35, so you should get married. And society puts a lot of pressure on you from home and elsewhere, friends, and they're telling you, no, your age is catching up with you. You should get married. Then I tend to find that a bit weird, because the main determinant of when someone should marry or get married should not be age, but how well prepared are they to get into an institution called marriage and to raise a family. And the preparedness when it comes to family matters is okay, the biological part has something to do with it, but the greater percentage depends on your mental preparedness. And the mind is only prepared through one tool called knowledge. Now, look at this to come back to your question. Who prepares the current generation for marriage? The mother just sits there waiting for their daughter to be biologically okay.
Very true.
And then they can sell them off, quote unquote. The dad is there eagerly waiting and kind of putting pressure on, like, can you get married? I need the dowry. But they don't really take time to impart some knowledge on, like, what is a marriage.
I think Mr. Paul will have a topic about marriage.
Oh, definitely.
What is marriage? What time should someone get married?
Right.
You know, I think that's a topic. That's a topic by itself. And so many other topics.
That is so true.
Just before we wind up, just give us our parting shots that men should understand what their purpose. You've told them all of it, but just give them your last parting shot. That's
right. Fellow men, I just wish to say this to us. And allow me to go through the 5 points once again. As a man, remember your obligation. You have an obligation towards God. You're answerable to God for the mess that is in the society. God will not let you off the hook as a man. He entrusted the society to us as men, and should something go south, then men are purely to blame. They are the pillars that are supposed to support the society. And that is through very deliberate, very purposeful, very wise decision making. Then we have an obligation towards our women as husbands. We've got to tend to them. We've got to be there for them so that they can rightfully and correctly implement the policies that we believe in. Let me say this, even though this is supposed to be a parting shot. Let me say this. Perchance you as the husband happens to die first. How would you like your home to be 20 years after being in the grave? Now, the picture that you have in your mind of your home 20 years after you die is the actual picture that you're supposed to transfer into the mind or the heart of your wife. So that whether in your presence or your absence, she can very accurately translate your thoughts into a reality. And then our third obligation regards our children. And when I say our children here, I don't mean your 2 and my 3. I mean the entire generation of the youth. These guys are looking upon us as men for direction. They don't know what to do. They were never born knowing what to do. If we just let them be, then I always say this to my readers: a garden of roses left to itself does not become wow, it becomes weird. So if you just sit back and watch a garden of roses and you don't tend to it, you don't water it, you don't add manure, you don't add fertilizer, it's not going to become so glorious that one day you walk by and say it's a wow. No, it's going to become weird. Lots of weeds, lots of pests and everything. If as fathers we don't take the reins and lead the youth, prepare them for the future. It always breaks my heart when a child has to learn that dates are bad when he's already in there. It's very sad when a kid has to know there is something called a prison when they're already in there because their dad never prepared them for any eventualities. So men, let's up our game. Let's stop the blame game and let's be the men God and the society expects us to be.
Viewer, you've heard it from the horse's mouth. Now you know who is a man. Thank you so much, Mr. Paul, for coming
much
through.
welcome.
And thank you so much for answering that question. It has
pleasure.
always been on my neck and wondering how to do go about it. And to you, my viewer, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for always subscribing, sharing this content. And once again, I want to tell you we're having a new episode coming soon. And we have so many topics that we're going to talk about: raising a child, single mothers, marriage. Kindly on the comment section write which episode you want us to start with, and none other than me and Mr. Paul here will be having that episode that will be running every Wednesday at 8 p.m. on your Kenyan time, actually 8 p.m. Kenyan time every Wednesday starting from August. And I hope all of us will enjoy. Keep commenting, keep telling us what other topics you'd like us to reach out and to talk about. And without before closing out the video, I want Mr. Paul kindly tell us where these people can reach you, which books you have written, being an author, and where they can also find the books.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, if anyone intends to reach me, they can always feel free to call me. I would give my numbers. I'm on 0725 9192 91929102. Once again, 0791 929102. Or you could get my books from me. You could order from me. I hardly do in mass production. I do them on order. But I've written many books. I've written books on love and relationship. I've written books on dominion principles and laws and how to go about life. I've written books on how to rise up again after you've had a bash in life that really left you on the floor. And many more are coming up as we continue to do the episodes. I'm going to share much of that, and God will bless you.
And once again, a YouTube channel.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I almost forgot.
He has a YouTube channel. You guys should go there and they have been sent by Soipan.
And that's right. My YouTube channel is Sage Diaries. Sage Diaries is SAGE, and then the Diaries for DIRIES, and it's a one word. Remember, it's one word, not two words. Sage Diaries, and you're gonna find more of my posts there.
Oh, my people, thank you so much. As just below your TV, just the contacts are there. The link to his YouTube channel, go there, support him, and let's rise together. Just like you've risen your girl Soipan, let's also pick someone else and rise that person. Once again, don't forget to comment on the comment section which episode you would want us to start with. Maybe you want a hint of how many episodes we have. Let's Mr. Paul give us some titles. Then you can start from there. If we give us some titles, we'll start with what we have.
I think we could cover family, we could cover relationship, and when it comes to relationship, I always like asking, framing it in form of a question like, what is this thing called love? I would wish to for us to cover that. I would also wish to cover parenthood, among many other topics.
Wow, you've heard it from the horse's mouth. So your work is to comment there and tell us which topic you want us to start with, starting every Wednesday from the new month of August. You will not get bored. Until next time, thank you so much. This is your one and only host, Martha Soipan. Continue subscribing, commenting, liking, sharing, and don't forget to press that bell so that every time we upload a new video, you'll be notified. Until next time, shalom and God bless you. I love you.